Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Nitya Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitya Gaura Haribo.
Hare Krishna. We'd like to welcome His Holiness Bhakti Raghava Maharaj to Cupertino today, to Sanjeev Taneja Prabhu House and Semi Mataji. And everybody knows Maharaj is a senior disciple of Srila Prabhupada. And Maharaj is in a world tour, visiting all the farm communities. Maharaj went to Africa.
Not all.
Oh, sorry, Guru. Sorry, Guru. So many farm communities. So
Better, yeah.
Africa, and then Maharaj went to Europe, and then of course in India. So we have Gurukulas in India, one in Jharkhand and other in Hebri, also in Hyderabad. So Maharaj main focus is the fourth wave of Srila Prabhupada, that Varnashram movement and also cow protection. And Maharaj took a vow that he will only visit wherever there is a farm community or a goshala. So like to again thank for his time and coming to Bay Area this week, and loudly invite Maharaj by chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. His Holiness Bhakti Raghava Maharaj ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Premanandi. Hare Hare.
Do we have someone? Do we have Mridanga? Yeah, whoever plays Mridanga should kindly come close. Yeah, and somebody playing Kartal. Yeah, the musical group should be together, close by. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopidana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopidana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Pradadana Randana Yashodanandana Pradadana Randana Jamuna Tira Vanasari Jamuna Tira Vanasari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopidana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopidana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Pradadana Randana Yashodanandana Pradadana Randana Jamuna Tira Vanasari Jamuna Tira Vanasari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Radha Madhava Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare Bol, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Bol. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Rama Rama. Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe. Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada 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 Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada 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 Prabhupada. Gaur Pimanande Jayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa Tri Vrajgacharya Stotra Satta Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhai Charanarvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Skandibiti Founder Acharya's Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Prem Sigaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi and Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhana ki Sri Vrindavan Mathura Dham ki Sri Dwarka Dham ki Sri Jagannath Puri Dham ki Sri Navadip Mayapur Dham ki Sri Mayapur Chandraday Mandir ki Gangamai Jumanamai ki Tulsiri Vibhakti Devi ki Hari Nama Sankirtan ki Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki Transcendental Book Distribution ki Jai Shri Sri Gonita ki Jai Shri Sri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Devi ki Jai Shri Krishna Balaram ki Jai Shri Giri Govardhana ki Jai Shri Sri Radha Madhava ki Jai Shri Taram Lakshman Hanuman ki Jai Nitai Gaura Pimanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and to Sri Gauranga. All glories to Sri Prabhupada. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Taksurandalitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayamrupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prasarine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasyatya Deshatarine. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Everyone may kindly fold your hands and repeat the following two short mantras. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Sarabhyai Namaha. Om Surabhyai Namaha. Om Surabhyai Namaha. Mukam karoti vacharam pangum langayate girim yat kripat maham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam Yat kripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Hare Rama. Rama Rama. Hare Hare. Jai Sri Prabhupada ki. So welcome to all of you, and thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to be with you this evening. As mentioned a little earlier, we're winding up 3-month tour actually to different countries. US was the last country, or is the last country, before going back to India. And there's a particular theme which I believe all of you can relate to, should relate to, that was very dear to our founder Acharya, His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. And that theme is also very dear to all of our Vaishnav Acharyas who are coming down in Guru Parampara. We have, later on we'll be making available short flyer we have that is explaining the theme. The theme is in 3 words, easy enough to remember. And the theme is make Vrindavan villages. Make Vrindavan villages, yes. On a number of occasions, Srila Prabhupada spoke about and encouraged us to actually make Vrindavan because ultimately those who are the devotees of the Lord, those who are followers of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, those who are followers of Lord Krishna, Lord Ramachandra, our primary goal and objective is to actually, isn't it, to return to the spiritual world where Krishna and Balaram and their unlimited numbers of cowherd friends and residents of Vrindavan, as well as the residents of Navadvip. We come to learn actually from one of our recent acharyas, actually the spiritual master of our founder acharya, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He writes in one purport of the description of Chintamani Dham. The description of the spiritual world is actually given in various literatures, and naturally it should be of interest for all of us. The Brahma Samhita in particular, which was discovered by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu 500 years ago when he was traveling in South India. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as we know, appeared 500 years ago to introduce the Yuga Dharma for the sage of Kali, which is the chanting of the holy name. And he traveled, after taking sannyas, he traveled all over India. And he came upon what is known today as the Brahma Samhita. Only a few of the verses composed actually by Lord Brahma. Just imagine, Lord Brahma, the creator, secondary creator, as described in the Bhagavatam. And in that Brahma Samhita, it is Lord Brahma who is expressing, offering his prayers to Lord Krishna. The whole wonderful description is given in the Srimad Bhagavatam. How many have a complete set of Bhagavatam in their homes? Raise your hands. Okay, about 25%. We are closely approaching Bhadra Purnima on the 29th. And actually, one of our goals and objectives is to have the entire set of Srimad Bhagavatam in everyone's home as soon as possible. Because in Kali Yuga, the Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation of Godhead, none different. Having the Bhagavatam in your home is like having deities, none different. You can actually worship. So the Brahma Samhita, in one section, this was translated actually in English by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And he explains how those who are taking up to the process of bhakti, of devotional service, and become qualified to return to the spiritual world, such fortunate souls will have the opportunity to simultaneously be living both in Brajadham and Navadvip Dham, Vrindavan, where Krishna Lila was manifest or displayed 5,000 years ago, as we see described in the pages of the Bhagavatam. That's one of many reasons why the Bhagavatam is so important for all of us. And secondly, in a very inconceivable manner, the living entities who will finally, because that's our goal actually, we're just temporarily here in the material world, which is described as dukkhalayam shasvatam, janmam richu daravyadi dukkadosh anudarsanam. It is not a permanent place. There is a permanent place, And that permanent place is in Goloka Vrindavan. So those fortunate living entities, I hope we get the sound right soon. Somebody's trying to adjust. Will simultaneously be able to live in these two transcendental places. So make Vrindavan village as a theme is meant to help us remember this and to cultivate and to live in such a way that we, as quickly as possible, become qualified to return to that spiritual abode. Now we have a situation in the world today where we are very far, especially here in California, from Vrindavan. But our Vaishnavacharyas explain how we can, even being physically far away from that Vrindavan, or that Mayapur for that matter, we can learn to create the same atmosphere as like Vrindavan. As Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would explain, Vrindavan is where the heart is. If our thinking, the feeling and willing, these are the three activities of the mind, thinking, feeling and willing. If we learn to convert, to transform our thinking, our feeling and our willing in thoughts and feelings and desires related to Krishna, related to the main activity that is going on in the spiritual world, that means activities of bhakti, of devotional service, then even within this material world, we can be experiencing what the residents of Vrindavan in the spiritual world are experiencing. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada, he understood very well. He was probably, we could say, one of the first, he was definitely the first Acharya who took it upon himself to bring this very unique message that he has coined as Krishna consciousness to the Western world. And it is an ongoing mission, we can say. Actually, it is meant to be everyone's mission of life. Unless we have a mission in life, generally we cannot be successful. Everyone needs to have a mission. Everyone needs, well, in modern days they say, you have to have a passion for something. You have to be passionate. You have to love doing some particular activity. And the best, we could say, passion that we can have, that we should have, the best mission that we can have and that we should have is in relation with Goloka Vrindavan. And we can learn also, this is the challenge in modern day society. It's a major challenge actually because, as we all know, we're living in an age, well, we're living in the age of Kali, and we're living in the 21st century, which has, in a major way, brought most of us far away from what is meant to be the ideal in society. And it is part of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's plan, part of Krishna's plan, that so many individuals from India, I think I'm speaking to an audience that is mostly from India, has somehow arranged for all of you to be spread out all over the world, actually. Um, but what is most important is that each person who has had that great fortune of being born in India needs to learn to appreciate and understand what is that great fortune. That very often well-known verse that Srila Prabhupada would quote, that Mahaprabhu also would quote, Bharat bhumite hoila manusya janamajar janma sarta kori kora para upakar. The greatest welfare activity. Actually, in one lecture in Vrindavan in the early days, 1972, I was not there, but I've heard the lecture many times. Srila Prabhupada explained how it is the special duty and responsibility of those who are born in India to take up this mission. If anyone is inclined to do social work, actually Prabhupada says all social workers should become devotees of Krishna and take up the mission of the Lord, because that is the real welfare work, isn't it? And that welfare work entails deepening our understanding in terms of dharma, because dharma is what distinguishes human life from animal life. Animals don't know about dharma. They don't have the ability, they don't have the developed consciousness. But we do. That is the special, unique feature of those, all of us who have attained this human form of life. We can begin to understand about dharma. And India's greatest contribution in the world is to introduce the concept of Sanatan Dharma. But this Sanatan Dharma needs to be understood, and generally speaking, it is not. It needs to be understood on two levels. On the level of the soul, that we are eternal servants of Krishna, Jiveya Swarubhai, Krishna Nityadas, and also on the level of the body, on the level of what is meant to be our material way of living, our lifestyle, what is meant to be our most ideal occupation, material occupation is referred to in the Shastra as prescribed duties. We all have different duties in life, especially those who are householders. They have to work. But there are specific duties which are mentioned and recommended in the Shastra that facilitates, that helps us to be more in tune and in line actually with dharma. There are certain activities which are completely adharmic, and there are activities which are more in line with dharma. And nowadays, in modern day society, to a large extent, all over the world, including India, unfortunately, we have deviated from these two aspects. So, Srila Prabhupada's purpose and mission for establishing the International Society for Krishna Consciousness was manifold. Many people may not know or understand, but it's important. One of the most essential aspects of a disciple, that's explained in the Shastra, a disciple should endeavor to enter into the, we could say, mood and mentality of his spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada is the founder Acharya of the ISKCON Society, and we continue to read and to study his books on a daily basis. Of course, we have a number of spiritual masters, initiating spiritual masters within our society, but Srila Prabhupada remains the personality who has established and who continues actually through his transcendental purports to actually guide this society. We need to understand how Srila Prabhupada is not just an ordinary guru or spiritual master, and this society is not just an ordinary society. There are so many societies. There are so many spiritual societies as well. But this particular society and this particular founder, Acharya of this particular society has a very clear-cut, very clearly defined goal and purpose, which was mentioned many times actually by Srila Prabhupada. For example, he explained how one of the purposes of the Krishna consciousness movement is to bring about a complete overhaul within society and to revert to the natural, traditional, social arrangement based on varna and asrama. This is controversial, in case you don't know. This is actually very controversial because I can speak a little bit on this because for the last at least 20 plus years, that's been my, I guess you could say, passion. It's a good passion. And Srila Prabhupada, in so many purports, in so many of his conversations and lectures, he tried to get this message across. Of course, you know, the mission given by Srila Prabhupada is a very encompassing. It actually encompasses so much that sometimes it might be bewildering. You know, what is actually most important? One sannyasi was telling me some years back, in the early days, some devotees, like if Prabhupada came to America, they knew where he would be going and they would make a point of just following Prabhupada everywhere because they understood, you know, Prabhupada was already very aged, very advanced in age, and Prabhupada would not be staying for that long, and to get the association of such a personality was like rare, extremely rare. So one devotee was telling me that wherever I would go, Prabhupada, when he would speak about, give lecture, he would say in one place, and deity worship is most important. If you absorb yourself in deity worship, you can become purified and qualified to go back to Godhead. Then the devotee told me, then Prabhupada, he was in another place, and he mentioned, if you do book distribution, you'll become purified and become like this. And after a while, the devotee became confused because Prabhupada was telling, if you do this, do this. So the idea is that any activity in which we can absorb ourselves, which is going to advance the cause, the mission of the Lord, which is going to please Krishna and Guru, those activities are the best activities. There's not one single particular activity that is above all the others. It's a question of consciousness and absorbing ourselves. So all of us, regardless of where we may be and who we may be, we all have access actually to this mission. We should all become absorbed as much as possible because none of us know, and it's very true, how long we're going to be sitting here, isn't it? Life is very short and very, in Kali Yuga especially, unpredictable. In Kali Yuga, very shorter and becoming shorter day by day as well. So in the lecture, my first live lecture that I heard from my spiritual master, from Srila Prabhupada, was in 1974 in New Vrindavan. It was outside, and a number of devotees were getting... My first lecture, live lecture, was when I got my initiation. I mean, I'd heard lectures on tape, but it's a different thing when the guru is sitting right in front of you. And during that lecture, Srila Prabhupada was speaking about the time factor. Krishna is Kala, the time factor. And Prabhupada was explaining how time is so precious. If we waste even 1 second, we cannot purchase that 1 second for billions of dollars. And I remember he asked, what date is today? And somebody said, 21st of July. I didn't realize at the time, but it was my mother's birthday. I got initiated on my mother's birthday. So anyways, then Prabhupada said, so this 21st of July will never come again. So life is very precious. Human form of life in particular is extremely rare. Extremely rare. And therefore, the first lecture I heard in a temple was actually a little earlier than that. It was actually pretty well maybe to the month, actually, 50 years ago, in 1973 at the Ottawa Temple. And the devotee giving the lecture, he was temple president, and he quoted from the Vedas, the first aphorism of the Vedanta Sutra, Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Now that we have attained this rare human form of life, it is a time to be inquisitive as to what is the goal of life, what is the purpose of life. And that, we hear different things. Some things just like touch us, or more meaningful. That to me was very significant. And I was mentioning that the other day, how that was also in that lecture the very first time, coming from a non-Vedic background in Western country, we're totally disconnected from Vedic knowledge. That was the first time I heard about the Srimad Bhagavatam. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is actually, at that time for me it was like a revelation, because to me it was inconceivable. I'd never been introduced to that understanding that there are such types of literatures that give us whatever information we need in terms of both spiritual and material subject matters. And therefore, it means that actually when we are fortunate to have personalities like Srila Prabhupada and so many other acharyas whom he's representing, our business simply is to hear from them and to try and assimilate to the best of our ability the message they are giving. So one of the powerful messages is, again, make Vrindavan villages. And as I mentioned earlier, Srila Prabhupada was very much envisioning how part of our mission is to again reintroduce, to revive the more natural and traditional way of living. And villages are an absolute necessity. Vedic culture without villages, because now we're going away from villages. Modern day society, we are becoming more and more urbanized, isn't it? And we are forgetting our more natural and traditional ways of living, where we are connected with Mother Nature. We are connected with Mother Cow. And that's why all of you here are very fortunate, because not very far away, that Vrindavan is there. At least the cows of Vrindavan are there. Yeah. Surabhi, Sri Surabhi Gokshatra, Goshala. This will actually happen more and more. I'm just coming from Canada, where we have, believe it or not, in Canada also, in our community, we have a community in Western Canada. It's about 4 hours north of Vancouver. We have a large community who's been there for the last maybe 40 years, spread over 2,000 acres of land. If you're not careful, you can get lost in the valley. Surrounded by forests. We have 3 lakes, and we have gyr cows there. So I invite all of you to come and see our gyr cows also. Because without cows, life is totally incomplete, to say the least. Can you imagine Krishna performing his pastimes in Vrindavan without cows? Can you imagine Vrindavan without cows? Vedic culture means presence of cows, because the standard chosen economic system, which is the most natural and simple, and which can more easily meet all of our necessities of life, is centered on cows and land. Krishi Gorakshavanijam Vaisha Karma Swabhavajam, 18th chapter, Bhagavad Gita. That is the formula for sustainable economy. How many of us are in line with the Vedic version of what is sustainable economy? I won't ask you to raise your hands. Don't want to embarrass anyone. But we have, I'm especially concentrating for the last few years on establishing Varnashram College in Mayapur, actually. Because that was one of many instructions given by our founder, Acharya Srila Prabhupada. We cannot reintroduce our Vedic culture unless, especially for those outside of India, but even those in India, because we have unfortunately more and more deviated from what is meant to be the norm or the standard, unless we have some educational institutions that teach us the standard Vedic formulas. There's a Vedic formula in terms of economics, which I just mentioned. There's a Vedic formula in terms of education. There's a Vedic formula, or there are Vedic formulas in terms of Vedic politics. Politics is not necessarily a dirty word. Krishna is the greatest of all politicians, isn't it? So these sciences, and our Varnashram College actually, as desired by Srila Prabhupada, is meant to introduce these standard sciences There are 4 basic sciences that is nicely described in the Kautilya Arthashastra. Who is familiar with the Kautilya Arthashastra? Hare Krishna. Chanakya Pandit has nicely explained that there are 4 what is called Chaturvidya. Chaturvidya, 4 standard Vedic sciences, beginning with Anvikshiki, the science of philosophy, followed by what is called Trayi, the science of education for the Brahmanas. Third is Dandaniti, the science of politics, for those who are meant to be leaders in society, politicians, Kshatriyas actually. And Varta, the science of economics, which has to do with Krishi and Varaksha. These are standard, very scientifically explained, detailed sciences that are there in our Shastra. How many of us are following or even knowing about it, isn't it? So the point is that the more we go away, the more we stray from what is meant to be the norm in society, then this makes it more difficult, more complicated for us to actually revive our original spiritual consciousness. In other words, how we live materially has a direct impact on how we are meant to evolve spiritually, isn't it? Therefore, Vedic culture is based on this ideology, on this lifestyle, which is bringing us closely connected, intimately connected with Mother Nature, with Mother Cow, Mother Surabhi. That's why this is one of the mantras glorifying Mother Cow. Om Surabhyai Namaha. All glories to Mother Surabhi, the original cow in the spiritual world. So it's very encouraging to see that so far away from Bharat, we have this Goshala, we have Gir cows. Who has been to our Goshala here? Probably a good number of you, yeah. Those who have not yet had the opportunity, we invite you to visit. And we need to have many such Goshalas, actually. Of course, in North America, there's so many cows, but not cared for by devotees. We need Goshalas, we need to have cows who will be cared by devotees, who will be protected. So there's a whole, we could say, there's a renaissance, you know, there's a revival. I've been spending a lot of time in India. Actually, most of my devotional career has been in India. And of course, traveling, one of the first responsibilities or duties of sannyasis is to travel. So there is a revival that is going on all over the world, I would say especially in India. And all of us have an opportunity to be part of this revival. And of course, that revival begins with each one of us. We have to, within ourselves, within our mind, within our hearts, connect with this mission, a very important mission that our founder, Acharya Srila Prabhupada, especially brought, you know, practically beginning from nothing and alone, as most of you know. And I was just yesterday receiving information of how one of the Gurukulas that we have in Jharkhand, the governor of that state was there for Janmashtami, and and he gave a very very nice endorsement expressing how the revival of Gurukul, that is one of the special features of our Vedic culture, giving that type of traditional training and education. So in this way, our Varnashram College in Mayapur, and we hope to introduce in different places, is meant to train individuals who will become qualified, knowledgeable in how to establish gurukulas, how to establish, we could say, Vedic communities. We are very, very much needing to create communities where the traditional values, as mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So I know that, being far away from India physically, and especially in California, that some of these thoughts might seem a little far, or might even seem to some of you not so practical. But I can assure you that they are indeed extremely important and extremely practical. And I was in Ukraine just recently. It's not so easy to go to Ukraine now, as you can imagine. It's still possible. You can't fly there. You have to go by road, and it takes its own time. But we have a community since a number of years. It's called the project is called Mother Cow Project, because naturally the focus is on Mother Cow. And a group of devotees, one devotee in particular, has been developing a community for a number of years and has already established such Varnashram College. I was in the Czech Republic before going to Ukraine. We have devotees who are also, Prabhupada wanted us, what is the main feature in the Vedic culture? Vedic culture, village life, people learn to be as self-sufficient as possible by growing their own food, by making their own cloth. I know we're so far, very far removed from that standard, but actually that is meant to be the standard. Because nowadays, if I ask our Matajis here, well, of course, because you have a Goshala here, I probably will have more hands than normally. How many of our Matajis are cooking in ghee, pure ghee, ahimsa ghee? Raise your hands, a few. Yeah, well, congratulations to you. But, in most homes, it's just not available. It's not there. But Srila Prabhupada many years ago, he mentioned how the only oil we should put inside our stomach is actually ghee. And ghee is only, pure ghee. In India, they advertise, and they have so many brands, but actually most of the ghee is not actually pure ghee. So this is connected with what we call material swadharma. It is also dharma. Dharma is not simply something, on cloud nine. Dharma is something that is very much down to earth. And we are, in modern day, in our day and age, or modern day society, we have this very great imbalance, actually. Well, for most people who are not dharmic, they are totally disconnected with both levels of dharma. But those who are dharmic, I would say, are more disconnected with our material dharma, material swadharma. We have a number of books actually that speak about this. Srila Prabhupada himself in his Bhagavatam makes reference to this. That's why it's so important. And since Bhadra Purnima is just around the corner on the 29th, I urge those who still have not yet received a set of the Bhagavatam to speak to our Sri Krishna Purushottam Prabhu. who has a direct line to the sources of the Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam is everyone needs to have. I mean, a set in their home. Not only just having a set on the shelves, but should be opening, reading, discussing like that. So everywhere I've been in the last 3 months, devotees have been very open, very receptive, and very enthusiastic. We have new people. I was in the province of Quebec, which is on the east side, before coming to Vancouver side. I spent about 2 weeks, and we have some very nice developments. Devotees also having cows, and these things are okay. May not be possible for majority, but we should know that these activities are so important, and somehow or other we should try to connect with these activities, support them in whatever way possible. We should try to, we should introduce more natural products, like there are different Panchagavya products that we can and should use in our daily activities, like more natural soaps. Instead of buying commercial incense, we'll be starting very soon to make incense here at the Goshala. In Indonesia, where I travel quite extensively, every month we have in at least 29 or 30 different places devotees on Purnima who perform Go Puja. Indonesia is the first Muslim country in the world. Largest populated country of Muslims is actually Indonesia. And we have devotees on many islands, because Indonesia is having actually it has, believe it or not, over 17,000 islands. So so in different countries like this, there's some very good developments and good signs. And because those of you, especially being from India, you have that duty and that responsibility to actually understand about Dharma and help introduce actually these principles of Dharma, especially through Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. That is my humble request. And in this way, actually, the world is in dire need for this knowledge, this information, and it is there, especially in the pages of the Bhagavatam. Of course, the basis of all this is the chanting of the holy name, as nicely introduced by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So I would encourage everyone to also take up on a daily basis to the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And I don't know if we have, what time is it now? If there's, yeah, already, yeah. So if there's any comments or questions, we can take a few minutes possibly. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
I have a question around the the varnashrama system and especially on education.
Yes.
In this day and age, you mentioned that education should be treated as a privilege. It was meant for brahmanas and kshatriyas, but the other ashramas or the varnas, vaishyas and shudras would learn it through apprenticeship. Practically speaking, in this day and age where everybody is running towards education and everybody needs to do English, math, sciences, all the way up to college, how do we wean people back from that that dose of run after education, get your bachelor's, master's?
Your question is how, in our present modern day context.
Yeah. How do we apply that? How do we move towards?
Yes. I will answer this question in the following way. What we are living and what we are experiencing in modern day society, to a very large extent, we should know, is very artificial, because it is not based on what is meant to be the Vedic knowledge and Vedic lifestyle is based on a particular philosophy of life. We have deviated from that philosophy of life in modern day society. What is the philosophy of life in a nutshell? Is that we are all spirit souls, and the primary goal of life is to strive for self-realization. When we forget that goal, then naturally all of our activities are on the bodily platform and for material purpose. The American dream is that the more material facilities we can get, then that's how we can become happy, to a large extent, isn't it? Whereas in the Vedic culture, Vedic lifestyle is meant to reflect what is the goal of life. The goal of life is to actually minimize our material necessities of life. Modern day society is the opposite. Increase, consume more and more. To the point that we have done this in a very, in such a way that we have depleted. We have already used up over 30% of the natural resources on this planet in the last 30 years. Isn't it? Because the leadership was not having this knowledge or information. What I'm saying basically is that Vedic culture is primarily an agrarian-based culture. The founding fathers of America, here we are in America, the founding fathers of America, Benjamin Franklin and others, made statements to the effect that America will remain great if it keeps agriculture as its main activity. The founding fathers of America were very pious, and they had some understanding of how to live in a more natural way. And in many ways, it connects with Gandhi's ideas and mottos. There's always been this dichotomy between village life and urban life. And Gandhi made some very important statements in that respect. One of them being that actually, of the two, the one that will prevail is village life. Gandhi had, and of course our whole Vedic culture teaches this as well, that modern day uncontrolled, ever-increasing industrialization and mechanization is actually going to end up killing us. It is killing us. Prabhupada made such kind of statements. Modern society, modern civilization is a killing civilization. So in other words, in the context of education, which is the question you're asking, the way it is set up today, the whole modern lifestyle and the educational system within that modern lifestyle, which is meant to cater and to promote and to advance this artificial lifestyle, will not sustain. We need to understand that modern day society is based on unsustainable principles and concepts. And initially that's not so obvious or not so easy to understand because the natural conclusion of this is that we need to, if we want to actually succeed in what the goal of life is, to become self-realized and to therefore learn to utilize what we need, the basic necessities of life, then we will, if we're properly trained and educated in these sciences I was referring to a little earlier, then we will understand that there's a need. You know, there are groups, there are organizations that have nothing to do with spirituality in the world today that are promoting, for example, I'm sure some of you know, eco-villages. Many people are understanding, more and more people understanding how the whole setup of today is not fulfilling, is not meeting a real, most inner needs and desires, which ultimately are on a higher level, ultimately spiritual. So we cannot, the whole topic of education is extremely important and can only be understood, I would say, properly within the context of what the Vedic culture is teaching us in terms of agrarian lifestyle. I'll give you a small example. Now, some of you who have the Bhagavatam especially, but even if you don't have the Bhagavatam, I will refer you to a particular text which explains this point very nicely. It's in the 10th canto, 11th chapter, text 37. 10, 11, 37. In that purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that when Krishna and Balaram in Vrindavan are old enough, they are given the responsibility of looking after the calves. Not the cows, the calves, because they're still young boys. And Prabhupada, immediately after making this statement, that Krishna and Balaram, when they're like maybe 6 or 7 years old, they're given the responsibility of looking after the cows. Then Prabhupada says, this is Vedic education. This is not Gurukul. This is Vedic education for the majority of people who are not meant for Gurukul. Because Gurukul actually is only meant for those who have the aptitude. Gurukul is academic education, which is called formal education. Whereas looking after cows or taking up some apprenticeship, learning some trade, developing some skill, manual skill, which is the situation for the vast majority of any society, is for the majority of people. Whereas Brahminical studies, higher studies, just like, of course, nowadays people have made it easy even to get PhD, but PhD is a small percentage of people who can make it to that level or who have the ability, isn't it? So when our acharyas speak about whether it's education or community development or economics, I was mentioning about the science of economics. Today we actually don't know what is real economics. When we take out the equation of agrarian lifestyle, we cannot understand what is actual sustainable economics. So it takes some time. I mean, it's taken me many years to begin having some little understanding. These are nicely explained by personalities like Srila Prabhupada. So yes, in the present context of where we are, it's practically impossible to introduce this. Therefore, we have to think, well, is the present context in which we're living the ideal context? Is this the standard that is meant to be there? Because Prabhupada also mentioned how modern civilization, I don't want to scare anyone here, I'm just repeating the words of not only Srila Prabhupada, but anyone who is having a sense of observation as to what is going on in the world today. Modern civilization, Prabhupada said, is a doomed civilization. Why is it a doomed civilization? Because it's based on principles and concepts that are not sustainable, that are not practical. America, USA, which has maybe less than 5% of the population in the world, is using 30% of the natural resources on the planet. And if you know anything about mathematics, if all the countries in the world are supposed to be like America, well, it's just not possible. You know, so we need to understand what's going on in the world today, and that's why we need the Bhagavatam. You know, Srila Prabhupada has put in these purports the realizations and understandings of so many great acharyas before him. That's a special, unique feature of Prabhupada's Bhagavatam. It's not only his purports are containing the realizations of great acharyas. That's how he translated the Bhagavatam, by referring to the translations of previous acharyas. So that's one of many reasons why the Bhagavatam is so important. And that's, unless we also take up to the Yuga Dharma, which is the chanting of the holy name, all of these things will just, they won't mean, they won't click. You know, we won't be able to understand them. And, you know, Prabhupada told us 50 years ago, he told us that civilizations, you know, different empires have come and gone, right? The Roman Empire, the Greek Empire, Mongol Empire. Empires generally stay for 200 years. And the American Empire is about 200 years old. Prabhupada said in 1973, you know what he said in 1973? He said, motor civilization as we know today has more or less about 50 years to go. 1973. What year is this year? 2000. I mean, you know, World War I, World War II, the Great Depression, these things these are historical facts. History repeats itself. So therefore this knowledge is so important, both in terms of our spiritual situation, spiritual journey, and also our material situation in the world today. Thank you for the question. Yes.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, the realization which you mentioned, the doomed, or the, like if you won't live on the land, like, you know, it came to the COVID hit, Maharaj. Even quite recently, India banned rice to sending to US. So they banned importing rice for us.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
And the people are lining up in Costco and in all the places, Maharaj. And you know, even COVID hit. At the time, I seen in Australia and in many countries, they are having their own land and doing the community farming like that. So
Yes.
Prabhupada prediction is happening, Maharaj. So
Yes.
want to share.
Srila Prabhupada was a visionary. He was a very, very special visionary, I would say, that he warned us, he gave us so much of information, which is there actually in the page of the Bhagavatam, and especially in the Bhagavatam, yeah. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. My question is, how can devotees with Kshatriya nature engage their propensities in our movement? And what is Prabhupada's vision for that?
How can devotees
With Kshatriya nature engage their propensities in our mission?
come and see me after the class? Actually, these Varnashrama colleges are, you know, this question was asked to Srila Prabhupada, that how to introduce these changes that he was recommending that are in line with our Vedic culture. How to reintroduce, you know, what we call, I've been studying in the last 6 years, actually, I've been specializing on what is called Vedic sociology. Vedic sociology is Varnashram. And Vedic sociology, clearly, you know, that's the difference between Vedic sociology, Western sociology, and Indian sociology. I won't get into it right now, but there are differences. We we should try to understand what is Vedic sociology, because that is based on eternal principles. So Prabhupada explained that the way to reintroduce what is referred to in our Vedic literatures, and which is the only way to revive, to reestablish Vedic culture, is you work out a curriculum whereby one who follows this particular curriculum will become qualified to be designated as a Brahmana. You write up another curriculum whereby whoever passes this will be designated as a Kshatriya. And the same for Vaishya. Write up a curriculum, whoever qualifies, he can be designated. And everyone else is meant to actually assist, because in any society, in any community, you have natural leaders. Natural leaders, but they still need some training and education. But you will have natural leaders, natural qualified leaders, meant to be qualified, and you will have natural followers. Nowadays, we have unqualified leaders in general and unqualified followers. So we have what we have. Isn't it? So Vedic culture is very clear about how to train individuals to become qualified either as leaders or as followers. You know? So we need to have qualified teachers, and we need to have, there are specific qualities, or 9 qualities to become a teacher. There are 3 qualities to become an ideal qualified student. It's all there in the Bhagavad Gita. All of this knowledge is there in our Shastra. We're not reading our Shastra. We don't have the Bhagavatam. So, thank you all very much for being here. And we do encourage everyone to, since we're so close to Bhadra Purnima, if you don't have the Bhagavatam set, kindly get a copy. Actually, one person came yesterday. That was his 3rd set of Bhagavatam for his house. He said, I have Hindi, but I don't have this language, so he took, at least 1 you should have. We're not saying you should have 3, but yeah. So we can take 2 minutes just to chant Hare Krishna, okay? Yeah, we normally do that. Where's Where's our Mridanga player? Oh, where's the Mridanga? Okay. Mridanga player is there. Okay. And Kartal? Yes. Just very short? Okay. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala 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 Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hari, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hari, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Bol, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Gauranitai. Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath, Jai Baladeva, Jaya Subhadra, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram. Jaya Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan. Jaya Radha, Madhava Radha, Madhava Radha, Radha, Madhava Radha. Jaya Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman, Jaya Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman, Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Gaura Pimanande. Jai Sri Harinam Sankirtan ki, Jai Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki, Jai Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki, Jai Samasta Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki, Gaura Pimanande. Hare Krishna.
Please accept my humble obeisances at your lotus feet, Maharaj. Thank you very, very much for your kind association and your amazing, amazing insights and your discourse and the ecstatic kirtan. I just have a small request. One of our very senior devotees, book distribution leader, it is his Krishna's conscious birthday. So if he could just sing, yes, Achyutya Kumar Prabhu's. If he could do a...
Hare Krishna. Normally, at the end of the class, because I generally remove my garland like this, and I always ask, does anyone have a birthday today?
Haribo!
Washing.
Haribo!
Yeah, everyone. Actually, the knife was clean. Accidentally, it fell on the floor, so that's why we had it. Yeah. So, double fortune.
Yes.
A garland and a cake. My God. Yeah, you should cut your own cake now.